Welcome to Round Hill Radio, the podcast from Round Hill Community Church. Through our conversations, we discover the holy and the ordinary, find moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about when we talk about faith. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Leslie.
Welcome back to Round Hill Radio.
I love being here, and on this occasion.
So happy almost Mother's Day,
Happy
everybody.
Mother's Day.
This is so exciting. So we're doing something a little bit different today as I attempt to break my microphone, apparently, because we are actually... technically both mothers.
We are.
Because as of the time of this recording, we're recording this a little bit ahead of time, but at the time of this recording, I am 8 months pregnant.
Whoa.
I
bet you didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been kind of coy and
Not
subtle
you,
about
but
it.
I've
noticed. I have noticed.
It's hard to be around you and not notice that. Leslie. I just want to say, she's really showing.
Yeah. But I sit so low at this desk and I wear a lot of black. So it's just like high video viewers. It's high. You can't even see. It's like,
So we're going to talk about your pregnancy.
So we're talk
about my journey towards motherhood too.
Yes. I'm so excited about this. This
All right.
is really fun because we had, when we record sometimes, after we finish recording, we chit chat and connect and talk about stuff. And we were sharing some stuff about like what this pregnancy journey, it really is a journey, oh boy, is like, and all of that, all of the good and bad and ugly and wonderful and terrible and all of that. So we're like, we should do a podcast about
And
this.
I'm going to talk about being an adoptive mother.
I can't wait.
It's inclusive of different kinds of pregnancy.
There's so many
and
ways to be a
motherhood.
mother.
Yeah,
right?
so many ways.
So this is our motherhood special. I've been tempted to call it motherhood. What was that? Okay, let's start first
Motherhood
of all.
brain.
Motherhood baby brain is real, y'all. Can I just say? I thought people were exaggerating.
Is it kind of like menopause brain? You wouldn't know that. But
I wouldn't
would.
know that. Not yet. But from what I've heard, very similar. I will be like halfway through a sentence, and it says, if someone has a remote for my brain and just hits pause, and I just go, and it's gone. Whatever it was is just. It's just gotten like hard deleted from the brain disk
let me
drive.
just tell you, like, fast forward a couple of several decades for you. As a 62-year-old, that also happens as you age.
Is it the same thing?
Yes.
I don't like it. I'm going to say it now. I'm not okay with that. It's really very
part
irritating.
of being human.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. Which
For
is,
those of us who are control freaks and want to have it all together and be
Yes.
on and up,
yes.
it's tough. Yeah.
Well, and I also feel like there's an element of pregnancy, and I imagine for me also motherhood, that really brings out my perfectionism, which I'm trying really hard to let go of, which baby brain is also not helping.
All right, so let's talk about your journey. all
Yeah.
right, and how this last 8 months has changed you.
It really has. So it's been fascinating because I feel like I had so many like preconceptions about what I thought pregnancy was going to be like. I felt like I had like the mental image of like, or like the picture from like friends and what I've heard from different women of like first trimester, you feel like absolute garbage. You're probably going to throw up. Or like you will throw up, basically. You're going to be just sick all the time and you feel like garbage, but you can't tell anybody. And then the second trimester, you feel super great. And then the third trimester, you feel huge and you just want to like be done.
And what was your experience?
So the first trimester, honestly, this is pregnant women across the world are going to hate me for this, but I never threw up.
That's amazing.
I was
That's a misconception, because I would have that conception.
I that was the whole thing of like when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh no. Oh, I really don't like throwing up, but okay. It's okay. It's worth it. It's okay. It's worth I psyched myself into it and I was like, it's okay. It's worth it. And thankfully I was okay. I was a little like, that's a little queasiness, we'll call it. And then I would eat some like cashews and I was fine.
What do you attribute that to?
I have no idea.
Is it hormones?
I guess. I
Okay.
don't know. I think so we were talking about this right before we started recording, that every pregnancy experience, even women with multiple pregnancies, right? Every pregnancy experience is completely different. is what I've learned. Like it's the mom at that time, the woman at that time, and then also the other partner in that pregnancy of the baby and that biology and how those two kind of do their dance throughout pregnancy. And so that becomes like this little dance. My own baby has already decided that my body is no longer my own. And when I sit the wrong way, I get a swift kick in the ribs, which I have to say, I feel like is, I'm okay with that.
Are you willing to share the gender?
Yes. So it is a girl.
Oh, okay. So she has a mind of her own.
She has, I'm like, she's sassy and I'm here for it.
She's definitely your child.
I'm so much like, she knows her mind. She claims her space. She's like, I'm taking up room here. I'm not being shy about it. And she's also been overall very mellow. Like she hasn't really
not in the middle of the night.
Not in the middle of the night yet.
What?
She seems to like chill out at night. Last night she was doing a full, what I would describe as a like clogging routine. So like a nice river dance moment. A couple months ago when there was more room for her, it was like a full gymnastics thing. I just picture her there just like having a dance party, and it makes me
How
giggle.
do you describe that to your spouse?
So hard. He thinks it's great. He laughs so hard. And now that she's bigger, he can feel her little feet kicking in. So that's become very, very magical.
How have you been doing with your body changing?
I have to tell you, it's been the most healing process.
Say more.
Because I feel like, well, my own journey with body image, with physical health has been, shall we call it a roller coaster, over the past 20 years of just like not loving my body, not appreciating all the things that my body can do. And I'm saying this as an organist, right? Whose job it is to literally use my body to make music. And I have undervalued and underappreciated it the entire time.
I mean, you're fit right in with the way that this society has done that for women.
Yeah.
Right?
We're really good to be taught to hate ourselves.
Yep.
Right? We're like, that's
everywhere you turn.
Everywhere you turn, here's something to make you more beautiful because you're not beautiful. Here's something to make you skinnier because you're too fat. Right? Like the constant bombardment of societal just messaging. Right? Subtle and completely overt. And then I got pregnant. And my body was like, girl, I know how to do this. And it's doing all these magical things without any active input from like my brain or me. And it's doing it, turns out, rather well.
And it had women's bodies have been doing this for countless years, since the beginning of time.
Since the literal beginning of time.
Yeah.
And I have found it to be very healing. Just to be like, wow, good job, body. Like, despite how much I hated you and mistreated you over the decades, you still are just shining and doing everything beautifully. And every appointment I have with my provider is like, yeah, you're fine. Yeah, everything's great. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you're fine. Everything's fine. You know? And as a slightly anxious person, and there's all these wonderful, fun hormones in your body when you're pregnant, which we can go into. It can up your anxiety a little bit because of the certain hormones, and it gets worse after you give birth. That you're always like, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? Is there something wrong? And I was like, I won't be that person, and I'm 100% that person. And then every time it's like, yeah, no, everything's fine.
And how can you not do that? I'm like in the middle of COVID. I mean, you got pregnant during COVID.
Yeah. Well, I literally thought it was over. And then it came back and I was like, oh, darn. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And the COVID thing. Yeah. I mean, so like a lot of people in our area right now when we're recording this are choosing not to mask because the numbers are very low here in Fairfield County. And I'm choosing to mask because it just feels like, I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much.
Right.
And why not? And so my piano students, I've asked them all to mask during their lessons because we're in pretty close contact with each other. And the funny thing is not a single one of them has muttered an ounce of complaint.
I'm glad because
Yeah, they don't care.
Good.
They really don't
Well,
care.
it shows that they care about you.
I don't even know that they've even like my
Because
older.
you're in a school too.
I'm in a school, but
Mhm.
like the older kids know I'm pregnant. Like that they've registered that. But like some of like the little kids, I don't think have really like I don't know what
I'm
they
glad
think.
that's not something you've had to worry about.
I haven't had to worry about it. And they've
Yeah.
just been like, yeah, okay, I'll put my mask.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. No big deal. So that's been very cool. And then now in the third trimester, it's just it's becoming a situation of you do get a little paranoid of like, is the bump too big? Is the bump not big enough? Is the bump just like you can get a little nutsy.
Where are you today?
I'm good.
I mean,
today.
in terms of, is it just right?
Apparently, I will say, pregnancy has also been an interesting social study because it opens up a lot of space for comment where people love commenting on women's bodies. It's just great. It's just fun.
Have you had anybody try to touch you?
Oh yeah.
What do you tell people?
It's been so few and far between, and it's been people that I'm like, okay, that I've just sort of tolerated it. It's not that part's not my favorite. And especially because I'm not like, out to here, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gesturing for our audio listeners. I'm gesturing way out to the end of my arm. It's like for a long time people were touching my belly, and I literally just looked like I'd had like a big lunch, and it just felt like they were rubbing like a big lunch belly, and it was like that's not fun for anybody. But on the positive side of that, I did have someone say to me yesterday, a fellow mom and fellow teacher at the school, she was like, "Oh, you're one of those cute pregnant women."
What does that mean?
It's this whole thing about like what your bump shape is, right? So like some women carry high, some women carry low. Some women look like exactly like their normal body, but with a basketball, right? Some women carry wide. It's like a whole thing. And we're all like, as previously mentioned, we're all hypercritical of ourselves. And so that did make me feel good.
How do you anticipate this baby's going to change your life?
Oh, in every single way possible.
Mm-hmm.
In every single way possible. Like I look at, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I look at how our dog has changed our life. And they always say how like the pets become our babies, especially during COVID, especially in this life. So she's like, I consider her like the training wheels. Very, very, very light training wheels of parenting because she's a little needy and a little clingy. And then just that times a million. So basically in every way possible, which is why it took me a long time, what felt like a long time. I'm probably like the last of my friend group to have a baby because I wanted to be as close to ready as I thought was reasonable.
Do you feel you are?
I feel more now. I mean, there's no going back at this point.
Right. What would it look like to be ready?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know.
But I understand because that was my thinking.
That was your thinking too? Because it's just, I knew for a long time, I was like, oh, I don't even know if I wanted a baby at all. And then I sort of had to like, oh no, yeah, I do. But I wasn't ready yet. And I wasn't with the right partner yet, which to me was a huge thing for me and how I wanted the story of my life to look like. And so once that piece got in, it was like, oh, okay. And then it was just like a timing of like, when do we feel like this could be a thing? And the funny thing was the discussion wasn't actually, was I getting any younger? My husband was like, well, I'm not getting any younger. I was like, okay, sure. Which is a valid, he had a certain expectation of how he wanted that story to go and his experience of parenthood, which I really appreciated him being so thoughtful about it. But it has been very amusing. And I think we've laughed about the fact that, so in America, if you give birth past your 35th birthday, you are considered, we have two terms now, both of which are really irritating to me. You are of advanced maternal age. Or, here's a real one, geriatric pregnancy.
What?
Yep, actual term.
Are you considered high risk?
Automatically high risk just because of your age.
Wow.
with no other determining factors, or no other risk factors, as it were. So they automatically go, here you go. So
It's a lot to deal with.
yeah. When you have a lot of comments from people being like, well, at your age, because of your age, and I'm like, that's okay.
So what advice would you give to people who come at you with those things just to kind of stay in your own experience and validate your own experience and stay in your own body, have your body your own? What would you say to people? What should they do when they're encountering people that are intrusive like that?
Oh, like the care providers are saying, yeah.
Or no, other people just out and about.
So actually, Pastor Ed gave me a great mental image for comments that are unhelpful and unserving and a little intrusive.
I want to hear it.
It's so good. Which is, you picture, you know, when you blow soap bubbles in summertime, you picture the bubble floating, and then it just goes, pop, and now then it's gone.
I love that.
And then it just releases into the ether, and it's no longer there. And and I also have like things I remind myself about. I have a little mantra I found, especially because in the first trimester, you traditionally don't tell people because you're at a very high risk for pregnancy loss, and so you read all these. So there's like these apps you can do, and there's these forums of women sharing experiences with each other who are all kind of pregnant at about the same timing. And you start to feel like sometimes their bad news can be contagious.
Yes.
And that's hard to take because you want to be supportive, but you also are like, what if that happens to me? And you're very fearful. So I have this motto of safe, healthy, strong. And I just repeat that to myself when I start feeling a little bit like, what's going to happen? And just safe and healthy and strong. And so I kept repeating that to myself, knowing that she's safe and healthy and strong. And then realizing that she wouldn't be safe and healthy and strong if I wasn't safe and healthy and strong.
Great.
And that was like, that was the sound of my brain exploding. And realizing that my body was doing an incredible thing and feeling just grateful and appreciative and just like kind of, you hear these women who feel very powerful in their womanhood, whatever that looks like. You don't obviously need to have a baby to feel that way.
Right.
I think it took being pregnant to help me feel that way. Like I feel I feel it's like what the word like womanly means. And I'm just, it's just been incredibly healing. So I'm
glad.
I know, isn't that? I would never have in a million years guessed it. I would have been like, I would have struggled with the with the body image thing and with that, and now I need to keep that kind of stuff into postpartum. And everybody's like, air quote, "You're gonna bounce back. Go, give me a break."
We'll have to do one after you give birth.
We should do one. Yeah, we should do it. So
really,
I know. I think that's really when it gets hard for sure. Yeah. And so I'm just kind of taking it all kind of week by week, and all the symptoms kind of week by week. Like, a symptom will show up, and I've learned now that like a symptom isn't here for the rest of the pregnancy. So I'm sort of like, oh, hello, new friend. How long are you around
Well,
for?
I can attest to the fact that in my observation of you from week to week, your calm spirit and maybe that mantra that you've been saying has really carried over. I mean, you tend to be pretty easygoing anyway, but this is really carried. So that might be a really good suggestion for people who are having anxiety in the pregnancy for whatever reason.
Yeah. It can be very nerve-wracking because you feel very responsible for, for like, the development of this human. And like, I have gotten a little nutsy about, not nutsy, that's disrespectful to myself. But I've hyper focused on what they call fetal positioning. So how she is in the womb can very much affect how easily or difficult the birth can be. So like lying on your left side versus lying on your right side. You're not supposed to lie on your back. And when you sit, you're supposed to tilt a little bit forward. So like that's been because it feels like something I can control. And we all know, if you're a longtime podcast listener, I'm a control freak. This is not news to any of our audience. But like, that's been kind of the thing I've been hyper focusing on.
Well,
but
you've done a lot of research too. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. And it feels like something I can do.
Yes.
You know, and that feels good. To have like something I can at least attempt. And it was funny. I was like lying in bed. I was like the other day and I was like, I just want to lay my right side for a little bit. Just to like, just mix it up a little bit. And like for like 3 minutes. And I felt her go, ka-thunk. I was like, no, you're on the wrong side. I was like, fine, I'll turn back over.
Well, we look forward to seeing how this little one, and you're not saying the name yet.
We're not saying the name
girl,
to anybody. Yeah.
Right.
We have some really cute nicknames flying around, though.
Oh, I can imagine.
My best friend calls her Junebug.
Okay.
Which I think just might need to stick as a nickname because that's adorable. Yes. Our friend Linda here calls her Ruby Sprout. Which is hilariously is the like temporary domain name we had for the new website. Yes. And so it's just called her, which is so cute.
When she's 20 or 22, like my daughter, she can tell you if she likes that.
I have a feeling by the time she's 22, we'll probably let that go. But for now, it's very cute. It's very cute. Yeah. So we're excited. I'm so excited. And that's also been part of like thinking about now sort of life after birth and thinking about what a village she's going to be born into here. The church recently threw us a baby shower and like I'm going to say overwhelming expression of love and excitement. And like, what a lucky little baby to be part of this community from the beginning. Like it took me 30 years to find you guys. And then she's going to be just like, well, this is a normal church experience. Like this is going to be her normal.
Yep.
And I'm really into it. I'm really excited. I'm excited for her to.
We will welcome her.
It takes a village.
Yes.
It takes a
village. And we're pre-recording for part of the summer when you're away on maternity leave.
Yes, so we're double recording today, actually. Yes. If we ever finish this episode, I could go on.
It may be extended,
and it's a longer cut. It's fine.
Yes.
Yes. So we are. The podcast will be. See, we're gonna take off August. Mm-hmm. But I will be gone, thankfully, because of Connecticut's improved, shall we say, family leave rules. Mm-hmm. I'll be gone for pretty much
and the
whole
church
summer.
would have done that anyway.
Yeah, of course. No, they take such good care of us.
Yeah.
So all that. So that's just sort of. I just had some thoughts to share about it, and and if any moms to be are out there listening and want to reach out and chat or thinking about stuff, I'm here. Would love to share it with you. I have some good podcasts to recommend that have just been amazing.
You've done the research.
There's a great birthing class that my husband and I took, and I was so nervous because it was many hours of sitting on Zoom, and I was concerned that he would not be. I mean, I knew he would show up. Like he's the guy that shows up. Like he was not going to complain or anything, but I was concerned he would feel a little like, well, I'm doing this for me. And at the end of the first class, he looks at me. He goes, "That was great." And it really created so many conversations for us to take that class together. And it ended up being a really fun thing.
It really brought you closer together.
It really did.
Yeah.
And really on the same page about stuff that I don't think we had thought to talk about, and took a lot of the fear away. Because I know, obviously, for me at least, birth was a very fear-filled proposition. And now I will say I'm intimidated, but not afraid. Which feels like probably a realistic place to be about it.
Yeah, and just respectful of the process, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think learning to bring it back to trust my body. Mm-hmm. It's done great so far. So why would it do otherwise going forward? We're gonna trust. We're gonna try to surrender and trust, which are two things I am not naturally good at. So we're learning.
We will pray for you during this next bit.
Thank you.
That all goes well.
Yes.
That it's a joyous time, that she's welcomed into the world as we know she will be, with just loving arms. months.
Thank you so much.
With no incident.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we wanted to also spend this time talking about your journey to motherhood,
Yes.
which just to me sounds like this big adventure. I love it. So where do you want to start?
Well, I'll say I was 38 when I was married at 38 for the first time. I spent my time traveling and going to grad school and working hard, and I wasn't ready before 38.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had fertility issues, and I didn't realize that in my lineage, early menopause was the thing. So,
got it.
So mothers, tell your daughters.
Yes.
What the issues are, because they can tend to be genetic, right?
Yes. Or even, I will jump in really fast, or even not what the issues are.
Yes.
Because my mother shared with me after the fact. She's like, oh yeah, we get pregnant so easily. I was like, well, now you tell me. You could have saved me a solid 3 months of anxiety.
Exactly. Well, and mine didn't say she experienced early menopause too.
Yes, these are important.
So even though I tried for a couple of years through infertility treatments, which is a very common experience for
really
women,
is.
right?
We need to talk more about that.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And women who feel like they're doing something wrong or that they're deficient or whatever it is.
Right.
And I had always, because I got married so late, I had always thought, for some reason I had this, if I'm not married by 35, I'm going to adopt internationally. I had already traveled a bunch. And so I thought that was already in my mind.
Okay.
So unfortunately, my marriage did not last. And it really was over the issue of having another child. He had several children, well, multiple children before, and realized that we thought we had settled this, and he just couldn't. And so we split amicably. And, I was in a church pulpit at that point. I was a pastor of a church, and it was really odd. And I just had to really say, both of us have listened very carefully to our yeses and our nos. And I knew I didn't want to be a bitter old woman. Yeah. And so we split very easily. And I immediately started in the process of looking at adoption agencies and knew that there was a woman who had been going through that, who'd kind of done a lot of research. And so she was a type A. I'm like, okay, so if she's done this, I would trust this particular organization that actually it was based out of Columbia, Maryland. Okay. And I originally looked at China, and then I looked at Vietnam. And in both of those situations, thinking that I would be a single mom, I thought, it would be easy for me, but harder for her. That's just in my own situation. Okay. Other moms choose, children who may look differently than them. But for me, I just thought, my situation, this is what I wanted to deal with. Okay. So I chose not to go to those. And I went to an organization that had a high success rate with adoptions from Russia. Okay. So at that time, the government of Russia was open for adoptions. They have probably about 10 years ago closed permanently to the U.S. But at that time, there were 600,000 children in Russia ready for adoption. Oh, my goodness. I know. And that was after they have to be on a 5-month waiting list just to kind of make sure that people within Russia are not going to adopt or no one steps forward. Sure. So my process beginning to end was 8 months, less than a pregnancy. Wow. And the way it worked for me was I told them what I was looking for, that I wanted a child as young as possible. Yeah. As healthy as possible, and then just let it go from there. I didn't have a region that I was particularly interested in. But for whatever reason, because I was at that time right under the 40 age mark, I got bumped up on the list. So I did a home study. So they do a lot of, investigation of you. You have to make sure that you're financially sound, that you're emotionally sound. You have to have references. Right. You have to be employed, all these different things. Right. And then, so you have a home study with a social worker, and then they go through, and then, so that was October. At the end of January, I got a referral, and that came in the form of a videotape. That's how long ago it was, of a little girl who was 6 months old at that point. And I looked at her, and knew that immediately that was my daughter.
Oh my goodness.
You could tell she had some delays because supposedly for every 3 months you're in an institution, you're a month delayed.
Okay.
But I figured that was okay. And then you're given medical information, but you're also encouraged to have a doctor on stateside to review the medical things. Okay. And evidently they were, the medical records from Russia were not correct because the doctor here said, it's not humanly possible for a brain to grow that fast. So I just need to give you a red flag. But this is probably wrong. So I kind of had to go with trust.
Yeah.
And what I've heard about because there's an organization called Families of Russian and Ukrainian Adoptions, which is a Facebook page. So if anybody's ever interested, well, it may be defunct now because, well, I mean, the organization's still there, but you can't adopt from Russia. And we know what's going on with Ukraine. Right. But there were all sorts of people at different points at that point in the process. And so you could go on and ask and just, see different experiences. So that was a really great help. But anyway, I decided to say yes to the referral. And that meant, so by the end of January, I then spent the springtime, literally I'd get a request from the agency to have something like certified, county certified, then state certified, which is called an apostille.
Okay. And
then sent like immediately. Okay. So there were days when I would hear at like 11 a.m. that I needed to have something out that afternoon, which meant going to the county office in Westchester County. So going from Mount Kisco to White Plains and then down to the financial district for the state attorney general. Oh my gosh. A state department to have it certified and then sent. So that was constant. Oh my gosh. But totally worth it. Yeah. And then I got the word that I would go in June. Wow. And the night before I went, so I was planning to go for a 5-week experience. Okay. To Moscow. That she was in a baby house in Moscow, which is an orphanage. And the night before they said, oh no, you're going to have to make 2 trips. The first one will only be a week and the second one will be 4 weeks. So that meant I had to the night before unpack a 5-week suitcase, go down to a 1 week, buy an extra ticket to Moscow. Right. And all of that difference. And
What? Why? Why did you have to go twice?
You know what? I don't even remember why now. It was so blurry. But, but it was a lot of extra cost. And it also meant visa differences and all that stuff. So
much paperwork.
So there was, they had to like fax me the visa for the, the trip while I was over there for the second trip. And it was a mess. But I got there and the first week was spent going into the orphanage and observing her. And it was the most extraordinary thing. She was a little blonde-haired baby who I love telling this story, and she doesn't mind. She's given me permission to tell. In fact, she and I wrote a book later, and I talked a lot about different things. But she was, for some reason, she was in a special needs orphanage, even though she wasn't special needs. Interesting. And so she was kind of in one of those round rolly things where you could just kind of roll around. She had rickets, which most children do over there because of the lack of vitamin D from sun. Okay. And, I was over in June. She was still wearing a snowsuit outside. Oh my gosh. So she was in one of these round things. And every time a child would cry in the room, she'd roll over and just sit next to the child until they stopped crying, and then she'd roll on to the next one.
Oh my goodness.
So it's just this innate kind of compassion. Yes. That, it just made me fall in love with her even more. Absolutely. But I can say that, the adoption agency provided a driver and a translator for me that stayed with me, and they were amazing and so loving and careful with me the whole time. But the first day that I found her, that I went in, she was down in the infirmary because she had a fever. And so that, but turns out she was teething. And I could tell so the nurse brought her out and she sat in my lap. She was a little listless. She kind of was looking around and I started just singing to her. And within 10 minutes, you can see that the translator was taking a video. Within 10 minutes, you can see her all of a sudden connecting and starting to bond. It was extraordinary. And people say in international adoption, or maybe even adoption in general, that my baby, this was the baby that was meant for me. She just was born on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And that has been true in my case. In fact, people say it's amazing, how you can kind of grow to look like people.
Yeah.
That she and I look so much alike.
Oh, yeah, you do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm blonde too, or
yeah,
I'm kind of blonde now. But we were both towheads as little kids. And she's now 22. Mm-hmm. And, this whole thing with Russia and Ukraine has been really hard on her.
Yeah.
And I've always brought her up to be proud of her heritage, to know that she was adopted, to appreciate her cultural heritage, and to be open about it with people.
Was that a cognizant choice for you because I know some parents make different decisions about telling their children if they're adopted or not. Was that a conscious decision for you, or was that just felt right to you?
I never wanted her to feel shame. Mm-hmm. And, my husband has told a story on another podcast, that he didn't find out he was adopted till he was 7. Oh. And it was from the neighborhood kids.
Oh dear.
And so that was a whole thing that no. So we started looking at the photo album from the time that she could even look, and I'd say, look, this is where you were from, and these people loved you and they cared for you, and look how they're caring for you here. And I will admit it was hard to watch her be fed there because they had to do it so quickly.
Yeah.
And so I as I watched her, I thought, oh, I hope she's not having a food wound right now, because they just would shove food in.
Yeah.
But it was good food. But,
that's good.
She's fine, and she's been wonderful, and she has no issues with health. She did go through a little period of time that we figured out 23andMe, genius.
Ah.
Yes. So because we didn't have much information.
Right. So, right.
Anyway, but I would just say, if a parent, if a mother or father wants to adopt, there are lots of options. Yeah. You can foster first here in the States. Mm-hmm. I know families who have chosen to go the foster care route. There are so many children needing care and love. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of ways to do that. So you can be a parent, even if, like me, you couldn't have one naturally. Mm-hmm. But I feel every bit as connected and every bit as in love with my child as if she had come from my womb.
Absolutely.
And I will say, too, that this church did pour into her, because I was here for 6 years during her elementary years. Yeah. And the amount of love and care, I mean, I just can't wait to see what they do for yours, because they did it for mine.
They're suckers for little girls here, I feel like.
They did it well, and they really poured leadership stuff into her, and engaged her, and in conversation, adults that would do that while I was getting ready for worship, just like you'll be getting ready for music,
right.
Getting ready for worship. So,
I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing.
It's amazing.
That with us.
Yeah.
And just the sound is that you were always meant to be together as a family.
Always meant to be. She just was born somewhere else.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And she's such a testament to you. I adore her. I think she's amazing.
She's an amazing woman, and she's hoping to go into the Peace Corps. I raised her to be an international world citizen, because she has dual citizenship. So
that's so great that
she wants to go work and give back.
Wow. Yeah, it's I look at all these incredible young women that we have in our community, and my husband and I talk about, I want her to be like this young lady. I want this young lady. Like, how do we help her be
by being you,
the best version? They're like, well, not so much like this person. None of us here, obviously, but it's like you can kind of get a little distracted.
I think if you and Gus are yourselves, you're going to have the most amazing experience with the upbringing. And, when we went through the teen stuff, I looked at her and I said, this happened, the struggle happens a lot. I said, we don't have to do that. I will give you space.
It's optional.
And right. And, if I had been younger, I I think I would have been more nervous about that.
Yeah.
But because I was an older mom,
Yeah.
it's like, I've done that.
Yeah. I also feel like, I mean, according to my own mother, I was a delight of a teenager. Now, how much of that is rose-colored memory glasses is up to, but I mean, you know, I think I have lots of thought. Here's the problem I'm getting myself into is I have lots of thoughts of parenting. And I'm pretty sure most of them are wrong. So that humility is coming back in, and trying to also think about like who she is and responding to her instead of like, well, like here's how I am as a parent. It's a whole other realm.
It's a whole other realm.
Parenting.
Well, Peyton and I wrote a book together when she was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Called How Was School Today? Fine. And it was all different chapters on how to talk to your kid because mine wasn't talking to me. And here I prided myself on that.
Yeah.
And one of the chapters is Mom is wrong a lot.
But that's so good.
And the importance of saying I'm wrong.
Right. Or I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. That one's big for me because I tend to pretend like I know.
And what do you think?
Yeah.
Right?
The what do you think? Because I will say the piano teaching I've been doing has been really interesting, just being around kids more, because I just wasn't around kids that much really in my normal career. And then in teaching, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of kids here. At home, we have a little bit of a joke because I had this one piano student who was, I think she was like in first or second grade, like quite young. And I would be like, how you doing today? She'd go, good. I was like, what you been up to? Good. Did you do anything fun for spring break? Good. It just was like not. It was exactly.
I bet that was happening at home too.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, to try something else here.
So you asked yes and no questions.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like, what did you do? Good.
Tell me how. Blah,
yeah.
blah,
Let's
blah,
just try a different approach. It's always funny. So I'm trying to really take it a day at a time, a week at a time. And beyond that, like, you know, I've got 12 years before I need to worry about a preteen.
Cycle of life.
Cycle of life.
What a wonderful conversation today.
This has been so fun. Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thanks for staying with us. This was a longer podcast.
If you listen to the whole thing, please leave a comment.
Yeah.
We'll give you a big gold star. And we are also grateful for you being here. Roundtail Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Roundtail Community Church. For more information, please visit roundtailcommunitychurch.org.